Right. Away we start with Conversations That Matter, another episode, and this time with Ryan Nakade. I hope I pronounce it right.
Perfect.
Wonderful. I got to know Ryan in the integral community chat, which we are doing regularly, and I really admire his way of being in the world, so young and already so smart and advanced, or whatever you want to say to say about it, and you will see it later. So I invited him for one of our sessions, and the title is, believe it or not, Ryan for President. Ryan, before we talk about what that means, and I would like you to give a little bit of a background, who you are, where you came from, and maybe you can already talk a little bit, which goes into the direction of Ryan for President.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for that warm introduction, Heidi. And it's also been a pleasure to get to know you as well. And yes, the title is very grandiose and very clickbaity, but hopefully we can try to aspire to that in this talk. So I grew up in Hawaii, and I had kind of a unique upbringing because I was brought up in a Buddhist temple. And my mom is a Buddhist minister, and the temple that I grew up in, called Daifukuji, had a very prominent role in the Hawaii community. So everyone in Kona, where I lived, knew about my family, knew about the temple, and we would have a lot of gatherings. So I was always very involved with the community from an early age, even when I didn't want to be, because I was very shy and introverted, but it kind of forced me out into the public. But growing up in that environment, I had a natural interest in spirituality and consciousness and Eastern philosophy and religion. And so when I found the works of Ken Wilber when I was 15, it was very, very natural for me to become interested in it. I didn't understand much at the time, but over time, my interest grew and my understanding slowly grew as well. And initially, I was mostly interested in just the spiritual part of it. In quadrants, I was just interested in the upper left quadrant experience. But as I got older, sorry about that. As I got older, one of my friends got me into reinventing organizations when I was working in a nonprofit, and that was in 2014, 2015.
That is Frederic Laloux, no? With his famous book in Integral Circles, Reinventing Organizations, where organizations, without knowing necessarily much about integral theory, have found a different way of organizing themselves, no?
Right, exactly. And that kind of got me thinking more about business and economics and society. And then when Trump got elected in 2016, that was and Ken had written an article about why Trump was elected, and then he turned that into a book. And I read that, and I kind of shifted from upper left quadrant interest to lower right quadrant politics, economics, social issues, and lower left quadrant cultural issues as well. And that kind of has been my last 3 years of trying to really study that and try to envision what an integral society would look like. So that's kind of what I think brought me to this point where we are today.
Mm-hmm. So you're envisioning to bring integral theory into real life. And at the moment, not only the inner view, which you have done quite a bit, the whole life before, but going right into the outside world and bring it down to earth in a way which is serving the world, serving the understanding among people in the culture, but also find ways to not only for organizations, but as we say in Ryan for President, to apply it in politics and try to find a way to change something. Is it?
Yeah, exactly. It's really trying to ground integral in something solid and tangible and practical. And I guess for a while now, a lot of integral people have been interested in politics, but I haven't seen a lot of work done in politics compared to other areas. So there's a lot of analysis that I see, and a lot of very excellent analysis, but there hasn't been a lot of organized practical action. And so the idea of running a integrally informed presidential campaign would part of the goal of that would be the campaign itself, with all of the energy and all of the media publicity. Hopefully, if you're, you get big, all of the coverage, all of, being on the debate stage and having a team of people to help get your message out, your team of canvassers and communication experts. And so this would do it would really have a huge effect on bringing Integral out into the mainstream consciousness. And, like, for example, Karen Voorhees, her dream is to mainstream Integral through writing a novel. So that would be bringing Integral to the masses through kind of like a cultural art. And so my idea is bringing it to the masses through politics, where it's like, well, what better way to blast it out into the public space, So that's kind of my hope for a campaign, so that even if we didn't win, and if I was running for president, or someone who is Integral was running for president, and people were asking, well, why should I support you or donate to your campaign? Because you probably are not going to win. And I would say, well, we're going to try to win, but even if we don't win, it would still be such a positive thing just to run this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And to have people, to expose people to a different paradigm in which a lot of the partisan political, polarization doesn't really occur as much in the teal consciousness, hopefully, and also give people a new way of thinking about life and the world. So it would do a lot of benefit even if you didn't win, and that's kind of what gives me the confidence to give this thing a shot anyway.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I'm wondering how you would do that. Who do you see at the present moment who is or either running for president or some exposed figure in the public, probably in the US, but also in the world, who you would consider with an integral consciousness? Is it Marianne Williamson, for instance?
Well, I actually don't know too much about her background, and I was very impressed with some of the things that she's done. But to me, the candidate I'm backing, who I think is by far the most integral candidate I've ever seen, is a guy named Andrew Yang, who a lot of people have never heard of, but he's trying to make a name for himself on the internet. And he is, to me, very much integral light, I guess you could say. He's running as a Democrat, but he's highly nonpartisan, very open to conversation. He did a podcast with Marianne Williamson where they were both saying, please go to please go to Marianne's website, or please go to Andrew Yang's website and donate to them. So they were very supportive of each other, which was remarkable to see in the political realm. And he's for universal basic income. That's kind of the center of his platform, where the machines are AI and automation is going to pick up and displace people's jobs. So he's trying to help us make this economic shift. And so he has two taglines for his campaign. The first one is humanity first, and the second one is not left, not right, forward.
That's wonderful.
He's really, and he's gone on very conservative channels and won over tons of Trump supporters, tons of conservative supporters and progressive supporters. And he just goes everywhere, and people fall in love with him because he talks like a normal person. He's genuine and he really cares. And I suspect he does have a very robust spiritual life. He said he's a big fan of Marianne Williamson's work, but he's not leading with that as a politician. So I'm very impressed with him, and I'm absolutely doing everything I can to support him right now. And I also have got a lot of my inspiration for a future campaign from him. So yeah, Andrew Yang, I hope everyone goes and checks him out.
Yeah, we have to find some resources and post it on the website. That's I will do. So I find that remarkable because I'm not very much in politics. That's not really my realm. Mark was good in that, but not me. But anyway, I'm sort of interested in different ways of doing life, let's say. Mm-hmm. And what I have heard is exactly that in the future, right and left doesn't count anymore. It's just what we are going to do and with what mindset. If we are open enough or if we are closed-minded, that might be maybe a difference. And then we had about a year ago, John Bonsall in our session. I don't know if you know him. He has created something which is called the skilfull solution. Mm-hmm. That means that all changes can be done when they are implemented at the same time in the whole world. Because he says, in my opinion, it makes sense, that nobody is against losing a bit of richness or something of income if everybody loses the same percentage of the income. But nobody should, for instance, or nobody would do climate change and have climate change measurements which cost a lot of money and then go out of competition because they do it just because they want to do it. That's that doesn't work. But if enough countries do that at the same time, then nobody loses, you know. So he is. Maybe that's something you could also engage with, because he's looking for people who are helping to bring that out. It is by sort of direct democracy. The normal voter engages with their deputies and asks them, if this policy will come out, do you vote for that? Independently what your party is doing. And if you do that, then I will vote for you. You know, so you get you vote people who have agreed to do something which you find important. And that transcends party system. So it's really, you can find it in the wisdomfactory.net, and when you go in the search function, John Bunsell, B-U-N-Z-L, John Bunsell, the simple solution. Just that's one of the few things I know, because we have interesting guests here in the Wisdom Factory. So a little bit I'm learning too. So I'm wondering how you envision to do that. Do you go and support somebody in their campaign now? How do you prepare yourself for becoming president? Maybe not next time, but a little later.
Down the road. Yeah, that's really a good question. Just to backtrack for a sec, the simple is something I was really excited about to see, and I think it's absolutely necessary. And I think it should be a cornerstone of every political campaign, especially an integrally informed political campaign. And a lot of integralists, when you read some of the literature on integral politics from like Steve McIntosh, for example, it's kind of tacitly assumed or even explicitly stated that an integral political system would be some kind of a world federation. And a lot of our big challenges that we experience these days, such as climate change, is a global ecological and the global ecological crisis, or even economic problems between countries, economic instability. You can only solve these big problems on a global scale, and you cannot solve global issues with national politics, which is our current political system in the world. And so the simple to me is a bridge between our current nationalistic political system towards a potential world federation. And it's a brilliant use of game theory where everyone can all sign in at once and kickstart certain movements towards climate change. Another thing I would love to see simpled would be a global tax on on things like Wall Street derivative speculation, where the global GDP for derivatives is $650 trillion, which is 10 times bigger than global GDP for regular exchanges of economic products. And that's way too inflationary. And the economic crisis of 2008 was caused by a similar gap between what you can hedge and what you can bet and what we actually have in material reality. And so if the US installed a tax like that, my concern would be a lot of companies, foreign investors would flee the U.S. market because you would have a tax on your investment. But if the entire world did that together, and then we would really slow the rapid economic craziness of our current economic age, and you could have a more grounded and balanced system that could be sustainable and ecologically sustainable and all that kind of good stuff too. So I really like that idea. Yeah. And in regards to, sorry, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to say it is a perfect idea, and probably we cannot expect from the people who are in politics to do the things by themselves, because we go on the street and want to do something. We have to engage somehow, and Simple gives the solution that you can engage and you can make your voice heard and you can give value to your vote. And that's what I find so amazing. It's really, in Germany and in Britain, he has already quite a few people in parliament who have agreed to do that. But it's not yet enough people who know about it, and it's not yet enough people who really want to engage instead of only protest. You know, we are still in a protest culture, but not taking over responsibility. So I'm wondering, how can you find allies in both sides? You know, in the political system, and also in creating something yourself. How would you think that you can? What you need? What skills do you need? What steps do you envision to take? You don't know, obviously, you know, because it's a process, but some imagination, I guess you have.
Yeah, so I think that it would depend on what happens with our current system. For example, if you wanted to start a third party and make it explicitly kind of like an integral type of or new paradigm politics, right? That would be very difficult to do in the United States because of our current winner-take-all system, where third parties are largely shut out of the conversation with our current two-party duopoly, with all of the money and lobbying and politics and power that these two parties have. But if we were able to install a system like ranked choice voting, or even something called range voting, where you can rank your first choice for candidate, and then you can go second, third choice, and fourth choice. So if the first guy doesn't win outright, it'll recirculate your second or third choice back to the top. So it really gives, so if people say, well, I love what you're saying, Ryan, but you know, you're not going to win, I'm not going to vote for you, and I need to be safe and vote for, you know, Hillary Clinton or whatever first, right, or Donald Trump first, then I'll say, okay, then just vote for me second or third. Mm-hmm. And my name would still get on the thing. But we don't have that system currently. You can only choose one person. So that just shuts out people from taking the risk. So I think a third party can be more viable once we have something like ranked choice voting. And there's been some there's a nonprofit called Change the Rules, and they're trying to work on installing ranked choice voting in the US. They already have it, I think, in California or in the Bay Area, I think. So that would be one thing. I think the second option would be to do something similar to what Andrew Yang is doing, and simply to run as a Democrat and help green move into teal. And I think he's already been doing that. But the one problem is that if you're registered as a Republican, you have to switch parties in the primary in order to vote for a Democratic candidate. And a lot of people are saying they're already doing that, but it is kind of a pain, and it may discourage people from doing that because it's an extra step. So that's also kind of a problem, but I think it's more viable than third party.
Yeah, the American system, I've understood that the European systems are quite different, you know?
Right. I don't understand the American system either. It's really a nightmare in so many ways.
And what I heard is that many votes sort of disappear because of the two-party system, that many people are just not appearing, you know? Because you don't have the third party. We have third parties, fourth parties, fifth parties, you know? And so you can see a little bit how the population is really thinking by the percentage the parties get. But with your party system, you don't know.
Right. I mean, when you and Damiano always tease me about the American system, and I hear about how it is in Europe, and it just sounds like such a dream. It's just like, I can't believe it. Like, that's how it really is, you know, compared to how it is in the US. So.
They have another way of being in conflict, but it's never so polarity as it is in America, because it's not just two, but there are at least 3 or 4 or 5, and so they dance, you know, sort of. Yeah. Okay, let's dive in. What are you doing now to prepare yourself?
Well, so the first step is to actually try to talk to more integral people about this, and eventually more people in general. And so thank you for having me on. This is a great start. And my whole idea was, this is what I'm envisioning. This is kind of my dream. But if no one else is excited about this and everyone says, Ryan, this is a stupid idea, then maybe I'll seriously reconsider it. So far, I've gotten a lot of good feedback and a lot of support. But the first is just to discuss with other people what integral politics means to them, and what an integral politician, an integral political leader means. And I still see a lot of disagreement on what people, what that actually is, or how to determine if someone is integral.
Yeah, let's try to define what an integral leadership means. What, in your idea, an integral leader, what skills does he need? What personal, how can you say, personal traits or emanation or whatever? Let's try that. What is an integral leader? How would you recognize an integral leader from a not integral leader? Let's say it this way.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I have to go back again and draw on Andrew Yang. And one of the things that he's done is he doesn't create any enemies. He's not a divisive figure. He's not saying that the poor people are the problem, the rich people are the problem. He doesn't say that the other side is at fault, and he doesn't come out and try to galvanize people by creating an enemy. He says the times are changing. We need a new system to better equip us for the changing times and the future that's ahead of us. And it's very, very unitive, very, very non-divisive. And so by saying that the real problem is that automation is picking up, the robots are coming for your jobs, and it's not other things like immigrants or the rich people or these kind of things. It really is just changing technology, and we have to adjust to that. So it's a very kind of neutral and highly unitive. So that's the first thing I would say, would be just your general message would be very inclusive and non-divisive. The second thing I would say is that it really comes down to how you talk to other people. And Andrew Yang also does this. And when he talks to people he disagrees with, both on the left and the right, he always says very integrally, yeah, what you said is very valid, or you have an excellent point. I may not completely agree with it, but the context from which you're coming from and the values that you're espousing are certainly true. At least,
So he is using appreciation.
Yeah. And what he does then is very brilliant, where he transcends and includes their perspective. And the way that he does that, and this is kind of what the cornerstone of what my political platform would be like, is that he drills down to very fundamental principles and changes that need to be made that are bipartisan, that transcend partisan differences. And so for him, universal basic income is an example of how almost everyone's political position, everyone's needs can be met by installing a universal basic income. And he can frame it in a way that appeals to conservatives. He can frame it in a way that appeals to liberal progressives. Even there, just to give an extreme example, there was even a woman who questioned him who was pro-life, who was anti-abortion. And she says, what is your stance on abortion? And, for him, he's a Democrat, so he's pro-choice. But what he told the woman was really illuminating. And he said, universal basic income, gives people the money and material resources so that will actually decrease abortions from happening. So it is a pro-life policy in a sense, because if you're pregnant, and you got pregnant by accident, you're a young mom, and you may not have the money or financial resources, and that's why you'd have an abortion. With universal basic income, you now have the support to actually have a child. So that will decrease abortions. So if your goal is to decrease abortions, then that policy that's so underlying and deep actually helps you too. So certain core principles, I think, you can drill down to, and framing your policy, your campaign around these core policies creates a more unitive message. So that would be my strategy. Yeah, and that's what I would like to see happen.
So what I'm hearing is that there is an integral leader is a person who listens to the people and addresses their problems only from a slightly different switch, not slightly, totally different switch. He doesn't say, oh, the others are doing everything wrong and I do everything right, so vote for me. But he says, oh, there is something we haven't probably thought about yet, like the example of the woman. She probably hadn't thought about it. Mm-hmm. That the basic income would allow single women to keep on with to have a child, and so she can see it in a different framework.
Exactly.
he's not, an integral leader is not responding in ideological way.
Yes.
But in more, I wouldn't even call it personalized way. It is personalized in some way, but it's not completely personalized. He wouldn't say the same, different thing to every person, but it is more in a understanding, in a deeper understanding of the needs of the people he is talking with. And yeah, and I think that you can see not everybody has different needs, as there are quite, let's say, categories of needs he can speak to that many people have, and then others have, many people have other needs, and so he can speak to them. Okay, so listening, appreciation is a very, very important thing, that not dismissing people, reframing. Yeah, let's see. Something else.
That's a great start, and I think the spiral dynamics model is really helpful in this, because you see the legitimacy of everyone's perspective, even if you disagree with the surface views. The underlying value system, or what you're really trying to get to underneath it all, is really what's important. And by having a set of policies that drill down so deep that they are they don't buy into surface conflicts, right? Because it's at a deeper level. Then you're able to relate it to everyone's particular needs by being. It's exactly what Ken Wilber did, right? Is if you step back continually at continuing levels of abstraction, you're able to drill down to some very core principles or tenets that holds together everything in the universe, so that scientists and religious people and atheists and mystics and materialists can all agree on these. They can't disagree on these core principles, and I think that's what the integral politician does.
Yeah, that's another important view, or important factor, is not fighting on the surface, but looking for the things which are underlying in this substructures. I don't know if it is called substructures in English. Surface structure and deeper structures, deep structures. And there often you can find more commonalities than you would expect. And from there then find an understanding, yeah. While the most fighting is on the surface structure. This is right, you know, on the highest level, in the sense, not high, but on the outside level, let's say. And when we go deeper, yeah, I know that from Noam Chomsky. When I studied linguistics, we were talking about the surface structure and the deep structure of sentences, you know. So, right. And in social environment, it's the same thing, you know. It's really, yeah, good. So we have the levels of understanding, let's say. What else?
Well, I can go into what my three core principles for those deeper levels are.
Okay.
So, I part of my inspiration for this idea was based off of Rudolf Steiner, the great Austrian thinker and inventor of Waldorf schools and biodynamic farming. And Steiner has a system, and I don't know if you've heard of this, Heidi. It's called social threefolding. And basically, what Steiner says is that the three main systems in society, the three main spheres, as he calls them, are the cultural, the economic, and the political spheres. And you can assess if a society is healthy by analyzing each of the spheres and their relationship to other spheres. And so when you have an unhealthy society, it's when one of the spheres completely gobbles up the other two. So in America, the economic sphere dominates everything else, right? Yeah.
Not only in America, I would say it's in the world. That's the illness of the world at the moment, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And you look at other countries like Islam, like Muslim countries, their problem is the cultural sphere, which is religion, dominates. It's a theocracy, right? And then you look at other countries like totalitarian socialists, you know, like those kind of countries, the political sphere dominates the other ones. And so for me, each of these three spheres can go through a fundamental kind of reform that drills down deeply enough to be nonpartisan and really hit everyone's needs. So for the political sphere, I would like to see something that some people call liquid democracy, also known as crowdocracy, which was the name of the book written by Alan Watkins, Integral, inspired book. And that is similar to the system that exists in Switzerland, where people, as we were kind of talking about earlier with the skilfull, right? People just go directly to the polls and vote on things. And you take out the political middleman that really causes actually a lot of problems. And our current system in the US is really based off of our very orange modernist 1776 style of representative democracy, which was the only way to do it back then, right? Because we didn't have the technology, or really, I don't know if people could really have been trusted, but now with our current internet and this amount of knowledge, and people can take the power into their own hands and go directly to the polls, and you don't have to call your representative or protest on the street. And the other benefit of having a system of more direct democracy is it would really decrease political polarization culturally, I think, because people would vote issue by issue and not ideology by ideology, not candidate by candidate.
Okay, I see some danger in that, because you named biodynamics, and you know that there are different levels of development. And people have different ideas on the different levels of development. So, for instance, climate change, and do something for that. A person who is traditional and even orange, modern, hasn't really so much interest in it when they lose money or lose whatever they lose, So the question is, if they would vote for a law or whatever, when it implies that they lose money, or that they cannot earn so much, or have to, renounce on things which they want to have. So I'm not so sure. I mean, we have Brexit, all this theater around Brexit. People thought they wanted to go out. And there was also quite a publicity, and not always told the people what it means. Let's take this example. People didn't know what they vote for. And that can be with every direct voting. So I'm not so sure if I really would promote that, unless the people become politically responsible. And that's difficult to have everybody politically responsible. We are all in our opinions, locked in our opinions. Somebody told us something and now we believe it. So how do you think that crowdocracy could solve the big problems of the world?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first of all, you're right. I mean, it could be a bad idea. I'm going off of this because of the crowdocracy book, and also because if you look at the polls currently, at least in the U.S., the majority of people are for things like climate change, for basic gun reform, for raising the minimum wage, for stopping the wars and getting out of Iraq and Afghanistan. And we've been there for 19 years, 17 years, or some ridiculous amount of time. And so currently, if we had a system like that, it would actually be more efficient, because all the policies that people want, that I think we would be aligned with too, the majority of people actually do want. But the minority positions are still kept in power due to the system of money and corruption and the way that politicians are bought out by corporations. So how many people, for example, believe that we should still be in Iraq and Afghanistan? Only 13%, 80% are against these wars. But we're still in these wars, even though it's incredibly unpopular, right? Because of politicians who are bought out. But who are favoring all the economic benefits of still being in the war. But to your point, though, there is a certain it does make me a little bit more hesitant when you bring in spirodynamics and you understand how certain people's views or certain majority of the population may not have political opinions that are going to be good for the rest of the world. And so I think there are different tweaks you can make to amend that. And one would be to have a form of direct democracy that was more similar to Finland, where the citizens get together and propose legislation for the legislative body to consider and vote on. So that's a little safer because it's still not, kind of this, they call it the mob mentality, right? The crazy crowd, which is kind of like what we're concerned about. And then there's still other ways in which direct democracy can be checked with traditional forms of representative democracy, and also the president's veto power and so forth. So how these things there's a lot of moving pieces, and I have to do more research about what would be the most effective way and the safest way. It seems like in Switzerland, though, it's still pretty effective. Although, the Swiss population is much different from the American population.
Yeah, and there are many less people. Also Finland, there are only a few people. America is huge.
300 million.
Yeah, and when you have only a small population, you probably can do many more things than when you have this huge crowd of people. But anyway, it's interesting to think about it and to explore what can be done, no?
Yeah, when Alan Watkins was being interviewed by Ken Wilber, he had the same concern as you did. So it'll be interesting. So that's one, which is the political one. The economic one, I want to call like capitalism for everyone. And my friend even recommended a different word, like regenerative capitalism or something, in which it could be like a universal basic income. Damiano's idea, which I also like, was a universal basic profit, in which everyone gets a nest egg of all of the value created by large corporations and also tech companies that will displace jobs, which is already happening in the United States. And Andrew Yang is running on the campaign, on his campaign platform, is that the reason why Trump was elected, one of the main reasons why Trump was elected, was that we automated away 4 million manufacturing jobs in all of the key swing states in the US, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Missouri, Michigan. And so this has been a problem that is only growing. And part of in America, excuse me, we have the opioid drug crisis. Record numbers of people are dying every minute from drug overdose. And a lot of people are very depressed because they're out of a job. So we need to have a conversation also around what the future of purpose is when people are not going to be working as much. And so the capitalism for everyone is basically a way for everyone to get a nest egg of, as Andrew Yang says, of every Google ad, every Google search, every Facebook ad, every robot truck mile, and every Wall Street derivative swap. People can get a certain percentage of the cash generated by machines that are not people anyway. And so it would be a more redistributive form of an economy that doesn't create bad incentives not to work if you still can work, because it's not a welfare program where if you don't make it to a certain amount, the government will top you off, right? It's additive to, so if you want to be rich, you can be as rich as you want and still get the money on top of that too. So I think that would be more constant with a second tier economic system.
Yeah, I was thinking about it is a question of meaning which people have in life. And so far, meaning is derived from work and mostly from paid work. But, women have been very much used to not be paid for what they have done in the centuries in the past and even today. How is it? Couldn't we, and many jobs, let's say, like the caretaking jobs, they cannot really be done by computers. I mean, they can, but do you really want to be cared for by a computer? No. So what if we could reevaluate the jobs, reevaluate what we do for each other, instead of pretending that it is not really, as long as you don't earn money, it's not worthwhile. I grew up in this way, when I did concerts and I got only 100 marks then. That was, that's not good. You have to be in a higher row to be recognized, so in a higher level, not row. And so the quality seems to be overrun by the monetary recognition of what you are doing. And how you go there, you can go by meritocracy. And many people still do, at least in the classical section of music. In the non-classical section, I don't know, but I don't think so. Or you go, as a woman, you still have this possibility to go to bed with a boss, you know, and also everybody is shouting against it now, but women still do, to get a career. So how can we give value to the things which normally are considered low because you don't earn money, and and have these things done, and even done better. Also cleaning up and things like education. Everywhere they save, cut money, cut funds for education, you know, and cultural and art and whatever. What if we could instead reevaluate that and have people feel, when they want to do art and they are doing art, that this is something which is worthwhile doing?
Excellent question. Thank you. And that brings me to the third branch of my presidential idea, which is what I call the Human Development Index. And so this would take care of the cultural component of Steiner's big three, so to speak. And this is also an idea that I kind of stole from Andrew Yang, and that we need to create a new system of measurement that values every single other type of value creation in society other than GDP and economic output. Yeah. And that's the only thing that runs the show really in the world, especially in the US, to a pathological degree. And so if I'm president, I would install the Human Development Index, in which we would have, I would unleash a team of social scientists and people who are even trained in developmental theories like integral, to go out and into every institution, into every branch of society, and study all of the different types of value creation that are occurring under my presidency or whoever's president. So it would be like, oh, like now we have this much more art appearing, right? And we can value women's contribution in the household, which has currently been 0 on the GDP scale, taking care of family and that kind of thing. And so to explicitly reflect that, right? Or if you're a mom and you want to stay home and take care of the kids, and if that's a goal, which I think is very important, and how, if the other policies like basic income can support that, and then we'll reflect, oh, more moms are staying home, families are stronger, all these other things are better, and I'll report that at the State of the Union every year in January and say, families are stronger, we have more art being created, there's more community happening, more people are volunteering, people are developing in more holistic ways, and so we can explicitly honor and encourage non-economic and non-monetary forms of value creation in society by creating a way of robustly measuring it, and the president's power of his platform, of the bully pulpit of the US presidency, to also just tell the American people, great, our art increased from 3 to 15% last year, right? And to nationally celebrate that too. And you can have all of the developmental metrics of every lines and quadrants and types and stages, and just say like, wow, like, I'll be darned, you know, people are either becoming a healthier version of course, you know, we'll have to make different language for this, but people are either becoming a healthier version of their stage or more rapidly moving up stages or whatever. And so after we have that metric firmly established, we can then introduce policies and tinker with how to increase each one, and build institutions that encourage the development of all of these things. You had mentioned education, which is hugely important. And so having an educational system that encourages independent thinking and entrepreneurship and creativity and artistic value. And if no one has a job, your identity and self-esteem and value has to be untangled from how rich and, you know, how successful I am. And we need to value other things: spirituality, meditation, contemplative practice, religious communities. All of these things I would make a way of measuring, and then go and say report how much progress has been made in these areas. So yeah,
that's excellent. Wonderful. That's wonderful. And at the present state of the world, we are still so much entangled in the economic thing, which is a characteristic for the orange level of development, no? That you have to get out money from everything. So increasing the speed of human development into more human values, let's say, more, I don't know how to say that, more interest in humanity itself and into humanness, that would help to overcome that. Because when you tell a person who is working 18 hours a day for getting ever more money on the, it's difficult to tell them they shouldn't do that. So they need to have some other ideas what they could spend their time with, or other passions, or other interests, you know. And that normally is when you grow up, you begin to see that that's not the only thing, money. You cannot, you know, take money when you die into the heaven. That's the last day of your life. You think, oh yeah, I have millions and millions, but what do I do with it? Did I live a life? Did I love my children or my wife or whoever it is? And what did I do with my life? Yeah, earn money. Sit on your butt for for your whole life to get money and count the numbers. So in some stages of development, this is important. And it will always be a little bit important, you know. We can always earn some more money if we want more. But the fact that we don't have to and still be humans and still have a decent human life, you know, that's so important. And now what the phenomena is coming up now is that older people get poor, you know, and when you don't have in Italy, they try to do this now, a sort of a subsidy for people who have very little money. But if we had a guaranteed income, so you don't have to beg the institutions, and maybe as in Germany, when you are without work, then I think every 3 weeks you have to come to the office and present yourself that you are still here, so you cannot go somewhere else and try to do something. You are not locked into the place. So if that wouldn't be the case, if you have the free income, you could think, for instance, with the money you get, you can live in a country where it costs less, for instance, or do whatever you want. And so for me, the most important thing is to help people, us, to find out what we really want in life, what our passion is, or what our deep interest is, not the surface interest like money, but what is the real interest, why are we here on this world? And that would be the upper left quadrant in many ways. So we come together.
Yeah, exactly. Beautifully said. You know, it really is about purpose and finding that deep purpose, and how we can design a society that helps people to really find their purpose. And I think, you know, especially like I use Japan as an example of kind of pathological orange, where there's so many suicides and stress from overwork. You know, and Japan has been a very economically successful country, you know, after World War II, but at what cost? You know, I mean, just the amount of, all of the people in Japan who are green, they move to Hawaii and then go to massage school and, you know, do all that kind of thing. But it's because these very orange dominated societies, including the US, we don't valorize other forms of value creation other than economic success. So if you do want to be an artist, if you do want to follow your dream and follow your passion, people like your parents would say, you know, no, you have to make money. You have to be secure. That's not cool. That's not good. And so the question is, what role can the president have in trying to shift the framework for what's valuable and what we wanted to promote as a society? And I think the best way to promote that is to establish a way of measuring that and then reporting the success, so that we can say it is cool to, you know, be creative and be an entrepreneur, be an artist, be a musician, and finding purpose is really, you know, the key to finding human happiness, right? And so we can report also on our, like Bhutan's, you know, like gross national happiness. We can have that too, and GNP, gross domestic purpose.
Yeah,
you know, instead.
But it's not only about happiness. It's when you are really passionate about what you are doing and you are working in an enterprise, for instance, you work so much better. You know, the outcome of the task which you are given will be so much better than when you go there and, oh, I have to do that, you know. With everything, we humans are made like this. If we are inspired and enthusiastic, then we do things and it seems easy. We go into a flow state. But if it's not so, then it's difficult and we make errors and whatever, you know, and or we have resistance. So even in the present state of the world, it would be important that people love what they do to help. Even the present economy could be so much better.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, that's a great point, and that's one thing I am excited about automation too, is automation replaces all the jobs that are really soul killing and that really suck. And well, most of them actually, like driving a truck, like truck drivers. We're going to have self-driving cars.
I don't know, because truck drivers, maybe they like it to do that. What else can they do? Not everybody is interested in art and interested in dancing or in music and something. And I think there will always be people who are just loving to drive cars or trucks, you know, enjoying it. And you take off their jobs, or it's not the job, but the thing they really love to do. It doesn't seem to be very kind of me, of the idea, you know, of the people who are deciding that we don't need truck drivers anymore. I would be a little bit cautious about that. Yes, when we think we are in an advanced stage of development, we don't want to do truck drivers and we don't want to do house cleaning while a housewife still has to do that. But, you know, we cannot conclude of our inclinations to that of other people. There are people who love to do the accountant, you know, and write numbers and so on. I'm getting like this, you know, and I'm sure there are people who love just to drive cars, you know, or just to drive. So self-driving cars, yes, but not only good, you know. It's also against that what we are talking, can be against finding your purpose, because somebody might have the purpose of driving a car.
Right. No, it is true. It is a good point. If you look at a lot of studies, it shows that though, like a lot of people who do those kind of jobs, it really is really brutal on your body and your health, and all those things decline much quicker than other forms of work. And I think that, yeah, you're absolutely right in that there always will be a lot of people where, like the accounting thing, like a lot of people love, I mean, I can't imagine anyone liking that kind of thing, right? But there are a lot of people who really love those minute details, and you know, that is their purpose. And yeah, I do think that there will be other ways in which those kind of things can be done that don't involve machines. But I also think, you know, back to my point, I do think that for a lot of people, though, what they do like about certain kind of jobs, like I would imagine, I think a lot of truck drivers, this is true, is also not specifically driving the truck, but it pays well. And it is its own kind of truck driving community and culture and even tradition. Like a lot of people in West Virginia working in the coal mines, I mean, that's like the worst job for your health, right? Like death, you know, and like the hospital bill is like ridiculous, asthma, and just really a dangerous job. But they like working in the coal mine because of the pride of its family and cultural tradition. I'm the fourth generation West Virginia coal miner, and you know, Trump's trying to bring back coal really appealed to that traditionalist spirit of, yeah, we're coal miners. So there's a lot that goes into that too. And unfortunately, inevitably, a lot of these jobs will be removed. And so the best thing we can do is to create a new framework that encourages that if you're going to do something else that's also awesome, and even if you're not making as much money, or even if it's outside of your family tradition, we're still going to honor you and acknowledge you and value you.
That's it. The acknowledgement, the appreciation, and the changing of our value system, of the hierarchy of values. That I don't want to come to green values where everything is the same, but we have definitely some things which are very low in the value and not and this it depends on us to change that, and give the help to those people who lose their jobs and who need to find another passion. But it's also for older people when they are in pension and they cannot go for their work anymore. They need to find something else which is really igniting them, because otherwise so many die after they have left work. So how do we find really what we want to do, and how can we help those people to do that, to find something? So that comes to your, what did you call that? Human Development Index. Really, really great idea, Ryan. We are almost at the end of the hour. I love what you have said. Ryan for president.
And I'll just say, Heidi, too, that I have proposed a lot of ideas, and this is the way that I think about things. And I am not at all attached to any of these things. And if someone says, Ryan, these are all terrible ideas, get them out of here, I'd be very, very willing to throw them all away. I'm just starting the conversation. And I really want to hear everyone else's ideas too.
That's it. Because just throw it away because somebody says you are mad, that's not the right idea. But give reasons why they don't work. And so when you go into conversation with people who say, for instance, that doesn't work, so you will learn to find the arguments or the reasons, and you will dig deeper into what is possible and what is not, and what your visions, the path for your visions can be. And that seems to be that you are planning to do that, to do debate culture, and you have already done it. Tell me just last few minutes a little bit about that. How can we learn to talk with each other?
Yeah. Well, thank you for asking. I mean, as you know, I'm very passionate about the whole integral crossfire idea and developing a culture around disagreement, difference, and debate. And I think when the people hear that word debate, they get a little bit like, ooh, like this is going to be about winning or one person dominating the other person. But I think what I want to try to promote is a way in which we can understand each other's perspectives. So mutual understanding. You don't have to agree, right? But just mutual understanding is what's a goal. And even being able to creatively envision a completely new idea birthed from our dialectical exchange, right? Birthed from our disagreement, we're able to visualize something completely new that may transcend yet include our different positions. And also just being a little bit more holistic in how we talk to people as well, where traditional debate is very orange, right? So there's only a focus on the content of what people say, very analytical, like what is your evidence for that? How do you define that? What is your logical reasoning behind that? But also bringing in the hard aspect too, and asking people, so why is that such a concern for you? What is your underlying value or concern or interest that may be coming out even in a kind of a distorted surface form? But let's drill down deeper for you personally, why this is important. And I've noticed that even if someone's views at the surface may be kind of disgusting or repulsive, or we may not agree with them, if you drill down deeply enough, you'll find some beauty or truth or goodness in what they're saying. Not always, but even just starting a culture where we can demonstrate that that's possible, I think will really help to change the way we talk to each other in every area of life.
That's great. You are talking in some way about co-creation, cooperation, which is not necessarily because we already agree and now we cooperate, but we disagree. And let's see what is okay with what can I incorporate something of your ideas into my vision, or things like that. This is a different way of co-create than normally we thought about collaboration, And I find that a very valid way to learn, to explore. That's really great, and we are doing it somehow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Ryan, we are at the end. Can you say where people can connect with you, and whatever you want to say? And you can also send me resources, and I will publish them on the website and so on. you know, do you have a website already about?
Not really. So I do have a website called Integral Campus, but there's not a lot on it right now because it's kind of a new thing. But the main thing I would send people towards is the YouTube channel called Integral Campus, which I'll send to you that you can post with the video. And that's also where I do the interviews, talking with TL interviews. And so yeah, right now I'm just really excited to talk to people about ideas. And so if anyone is interested in talking to me, you can, and also I'll give you my email address too, so people can email me ideas and get a conversation going about this.
That's good. And people, in the integral way, you need to grow up, clean up, wake up, and show up. And show up with Ryan. He gives you also the possibility to be on camera with him and talk about your stuff and your visions and your ideas. So that's great. So Ryan, thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Heidi. Thank you.